Hi, this is Gerald Celente. It's Thursday, February 23rd, 2017, and here are some of today's trends in the news. On the market front, everything is down, except Dow's up, gold's up, and oil's up, but only a little bit. But that Dow just keeps humming along. Dow posts 10th straight record close. This is after the new U.S. Treasury Secretary, Steve Mnuchin, talked about the big tax breaks coming up. He was on NBC's Squawk Box, and he said he wants to see very significant tax reforms passed before Congress's August recess. We want to get this done by the August recess. We've been working closely with the leadership in the House and the Senate, and we're looking at a combined plan. So, you remember the three things. That's boosting the market, tax cuts, deregulation of all of those industries that Trump likes, especially the financial one, and of course, infrastructure. Infrastructure. Because you remember what Trump said right after he became president-elect. I'm going to fix our inner cities. I'm going to rebuild the highways, airports, schools, and hospitals. That's right. I'm going to rebuild this infrastructure second to none. Yeah, $1 trillion over 10 years. And basically a $4 trillion U.S. budget. You're going to fix our inner cities. You're going to rebuild the highways, airports, schools, and hospitals. How are you going to do it? Well, we're going to take private corporate tax credits. They're going to no, they're not, because they got to bring in dough, and you're only talking about maybe some toll roads and bridges. You got to, if you need that revenue to come in, and you're not going to get it. So how are you going to rebuild this? Not with $100 billion. We have the plan to rebuild it. It's Occupy Peace. It's one of our main precepts. Close all the bases overseas and bring home the troops and have them rebuild our infrastructure rather than rebuilding the countries that the military destroys. The United States has spent more money rebuilding Afghanistan than they have after World War II with the Marshall Plan, when adjusted for inflation. So, those are the three things. So far, Mnuchin's talking about one of them. Trump is talking about two of them with the changing of regulations. But number three, infrastructure repair, it's coming up a zero. Just for the facts, folks. And here's what Mnuchin had to say about taxes. Stephen Mnuchin laid out an ambitious goal to secure U.S. tax code overhaul, as I said, by August, and to deliver growth at rates not seen, economic growth, in more than a decade. They're talking about 3% sustained growth. And on the geopolitical front, the economic front, he's saying that's going to happen because they asked him about doing deals with China. And Mr. Mnuchin demurred when asked, and he said he looked for a healthy bilateral relationship with the world's second largest economy. Quote, there's trade issues that will make sense to look at, and I think there's investment issues that will make sense to look at, he said. And you know I'm no fan of anybody's, but this guy's a sharp business guy. And I really believe that that's one of the reasons why this market's going up. They're going to have some success in renegotiating deals with China and with Mexico and the other trading partners. And to think that it can't happen to me is, well, it's not thinking at all. Because again, at one time we didn't have in this country that any company could bring in products made by slave labor people at being paid slave labor wages. So, read yesterday's or today's headline, front page story in the Wall Street Journal. Fed eyes aggressive rate increases. Minutes show officials might raise rates fairly soon, signaling a possibly March move. The language indicated the central bank could adopt a more aggressive course of increasing rates this year. Policymakers said they could raise rates fairly soon and suggested that proposed tax cuts and new spending could prompt them to lift rates further higher to keep a lid on inflation. That was yesterday. Yesterday, today. Same news. Nothing changed. Gold hits 4-month high as Fed dampens rate hike expectations. That's from CNBC. This is from the Wall Street Journal. So, whoof, gold shot up today really strong. Hit another 3-month high. I don't see it here. I'm missing something. Gold prices hit a 3-month high on Thursday after the minutes of the latest Federal Reserve policy meeting further dampened expectations of an interest rate hike in March. Well, maybe they won't raise interest rates in March, but they're going to raise them is our forecast. But again, here you can see the divergence of stories and the divergence of facts. Oil prices. Well, they went up a little bit today, but they were up a lot high. They went a little down because you know why. Inventories built greater than expected. It's the same old thing. All this is a playing game. It's a gambling game. Nothing more in oil. Home sales rise despite higher prices. Home sales rose in January to their highest level, you ready for this? Since February 2007. Purchases of previously owned homes, which account for the vast majority of U.S. sales, increased 3.3% from December to a seasonally adjusted annual rate of 5.69%. Now, let's go back. They're talking about raising interest rates. When interest rates go up, this thing's going to slow down to some extent. And everybody's looking for a big market correction. That's no surprise. I'm not the only person talking about this. Most people are. We believe the markets will recover after being hit hard, absent them being hit by a wild card. And Trump is the biggest wild card to play. And so too is terror and war. Emerging markets revival boasted by low valuations and demand from Beijing. A very important story. We saw the emerging markets submerge, particularly after Trump got elected and the dollar got stronger. The dollar's up about 3% since Trump got elected. So, why are emerging markets going up? Because one of the biggest buyers of emerging market goods and natural resources, Chinese. And the Chinese are buying more. Again, you look at their import-export data, the last round, and it's buy and sell China. We don't see it going anywhere. Yes, they have an enormous debt bubble, but they're going to keep inflating that bubble the best way that they can. Brussels warns Rome to cut record debt. Yep. To cut its record public debt by April to avoid breaching EU budget rules. They're looking at a debt-to-GDP ratio of 133% in Italy. So, do you know what Brussels warns them how to correct debt? It means screw the people. Keep robbing from them by raising their taxes and cutting their pensions and benefits. You know, you hear me say that all the time. And to raise their retirement age till after they die. So you think I'm making this up? No. The European Commission said yesterday that Italy's debt represented a major source of vulnerability and urged Rome to meet commitments to adopt pension reforms and other structural measures. Yeah, they take that structural measure and you know where they shove it. And speaking about the great shaft, keep going on there and pushing it everywhere it can go. IMF tells Greece help depends on reform. Help. Oh, they helped them so great, didn't they? Yeah. Greece must embrace further structural overhauls before the International Monetary Fund can provide financial assistance, adding that if more reforms are conducted, less debt relief will be needed. You know what the reforms are? I just said them. Higher taxes, less benefits, raise the retirement age till after you die, screw the people, push them back into the low levels of slavelandia. That's all this is, so you can bail out the banks from making bad bets. End of story. But hey, it's what it is. Fascism, the merger of state and corporate powers, and the corporate powers are running a government near you. And on to some global issues. That Iran's back in the news. UN watchdog chief, confident Iran nuclear accord will be held. Wow. The head of the UN's atomic watchdog is confident that the U.S. will not scupper Iran's nuclear deal despite President Donald Trump's swinging criticism of the accord. Remember, Trump said it was the worst deal I've ever seen negotiated. And of course, he put Iran on notice, Trump did, because they shot off that ballistic missile. But the UN saying that the Iran deal will continue to go through. We don't think so. Again, we believe there's going to be conflict between Israel and Iran, and the United States is going to be dragged into this. Again, by the United States, all the talking points from Israel and the United States that Iran is the world's greatest supporter of terror. So that's what the UN chief says. We say no. Poll. Interesting. Most Americans worried about war. Hey, worried about war? Go to occupypeace.us and maybe we could do something to stop it. A new NBC survey released today reveals that 2/3 of Americans are worried about the possibility that the United States will become engaged in a major war in the next 4 years. And this is really interesting about Russia. Here's the split. Republicans leaning 50-49 toward being friendly toward Russia. 50-49 being friendly toward Russia, the Republicans, but them peace-loving Democrats, those peace-loving liberals, or I should say piece of crap prize Obama-loving liberals. 75% of the Democrats believe that Russia is either unfriendly or an enemy outright. Isn't that great, huh? And the war talk keeps heating up. Germany announces military growth will send tanks to Russian border. Great. Yeah. Send more tanks to the Russian border. Oh, you did a great job in World War II, you Germans. Launched the biggest military offensive in world history against Russia. Oh, and now you're going to bring more tanks. That's really going to scare them. And to keep the war talk going, more U.S. troops may be needed to fight against ISIS in Syria, Central Command says. I'm very concerned about maintaining momentum. General Joseph L. Votel, the head of the United States Central Command, told reporters accompanying him on a trip to the region. It could be that we take on a larger burden ourselves. That's an option. Everything you've done, you failed at. You haven't won a war since World War II. The Korean War, the Vietnam War, the Afghan War, the Iraq War, the Libyan War, the Syrian War, the Yemen War. And all they do is keep talking up more war, and no one ever calls them out. I wonder why. I know why. They don't want to occupy peace. This is Gerald Celente, and that's some of today's trends in the news.